Yesterday we had a conversation with those who play in the private sector in the power generation company, the Association of Electricity Producers. We had the CEO here. Today we are dealing with the guys who deal with the big transmission lines, those pylons. You see, when there is a power blackout and then people now start putting all those memes out in media, at the pylon jumping. Tiziko idol. The owner of the pylons is our next guest. He's engineer Dr. John Mativo, who is the MD of the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO. Engineer, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Daktari engineer?
I'm okay with either.
Or even both, eh?
Even both.
Even better for both.
Even better for both.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
It's good to have you here so that, first of all, for people to understand who is KETRACO, sisi tunajua tu wale watu wanatulipisha stima. Who is KETRACO, what do you do, and the importance of the work that you do. And then we come into what we've been seeing lately, PPP everywhere. PPP for dams, PPP for airport, PPP for power transmission. Right. And there was a whole conversation about PPPs in power transmission. You need to explain that to us. And that's why you're here. Karibu.
Asante sana. I think to best understand what KETRACO does, maybe it's good to go back in history to understand where we came from. And I was just checking some statistics. By the way, it's 150 years. This year we actually celebrated 150 years since the first generator in East Africa came on board. The Sultan in Zanzibar and whatever did some power project. Later, around 1908, that's the time power came to Kenya, Nairobi for the first time, and Mombasa. So you have to go all the way to around 1958. That's the time the Queen and the government, that was the colonial government at that time, did a dam in Owen Falls. Then they built a first transmission line all the way to Nairobi. So Kenya at least had the first transmission infrastructure. Why I started that point, and let me even jump all the way to 1990s, late, if you can remember. 97, 98, during that time, we used to have, Kenya Power used to put actually notice in the newspaper that you're going to have rationings of 8 hours, 12 hours. Actually, most people might forget that was a daily occurrence that you'd not get power at this date. And the government and plus everybody in the energy sector came together and thought it wise to unbundle generation. So that's the time KenGen was formed. Then you had the independent power producers come on board to fast track generation. But with even less than 10 years from that time, around 2006, it was realized that, yes, generation is increasing. So you had Agreco come on board, you had many generations come on board, but the transmission line was not growing. And let me go back again to understand how it was not going for a long time, so that you get the rationale of KETRACO. So, for 1958, we do a transmission line, all the way from Jinja, Tororo, all the way to Nairobi, later extended to Rabai. Late 60s, during President Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and President Moi in the 80s, 70s and 80s, you start getting a number of hydros being done in the Tana Delta, and transmission lines coming to Nairobi, going to Mombasa, going to Nyanyuki. Then again, you have to jump all the way to 1991. Then you have TACO come on board to connect the grid. Then you have to jump all the way to 2004 to have a line coming from Olkaria to the rest of the grid. Now, you're basically having 50 years of the history of the country with hardly any transmission infrastructure coming on board. And that's why the government and the development partners thought it wise to form a company at the end of 2008 to focus on nothing apart from transmission infrastructure. So when KETRACO was formed, we had only partly 3,400 kilometers of transmission line, and the needs of the country, I think that time it was just 1,000 megawatts, but the needs were much more than that. So government thought it wise to form KETRACO to focus on nothing else apart of accelerating the transmission infrastructure. And that's why now the only thing we do from morning to evening, Monday to Friday, January to December, is purely high voltage transmission lines, the one you have described. So it's from 132 kV and above. Generally what you have said, those are the ones that are going to be carried on the pylons or the lattice towers, the big ones that are bringing power. So we are given a key mandate to see how to build up the infrastructure within the shortest time possible. So from that time to today, which is around 2008 to now 2025, we have increased the grid from the 3,400 to now we're currently at 9,400. We're heading to 10,000 kilometers by the end of this year, because that is what we focus on, and that only. And I mean, the advantage is definitely transmission infrastructure is that it's able to be more stable more available. Actually, the truth is that our transmission lines operate at 99.99% availability. The 0.01% when they're not available, unfortunately, we have a national blackout or a partial national blackout. But that's how we operate for no time. So that's the rationale of getting KETRACO, and what KETRACO is doing quickly to get where people required power load centers, if I can call them that, or towns that were previously connected using 33 kV lines, the ones on timber poles, change them to high voltage lines. Timber poles, on Friday, Saturday, somebody's drunk, it's a pole, there's no power in that place. A tree grows up and touches the cables, there's no power. So changing them to high voltage. Good examples, Kisi, Kitale. Then you had towns like Garissa and Lamu that are on isolated diesel generators. So again, we did transmission lines to connect those.
Take power to them.
Yeah, so they're part of the grid.
Before we even go very far, explain to a 15-year-old this whole idea of transmission lines. We see, tunajua waya ya stima. Kuna zingine ziko kwa chuma, zingine ziko kwa mti, zingine ziko kwa concrete.
Okay.
But all we know is wire is a stima. What's the difference?
Okay, the difference is this. Power is usually generated at a low voltage, maybe anything like less than 10, sometimes 7. Now, for you to move this power from point A to point B over a long distance, if you try to move it at that voltage, the losses will be a lot. Actually, the best way to understand voltage, because it gets a bit complicated, is to assume water pressure. Let me use that as a good example. So you build a dam somewhere in Muranga, you want water to come to Nairobi, so you can imagine the pipe has to be quite big, definitely to meet the volume, and the pressure has to be quite high. So that's the same thing with power. Again, to bring power from a long distance, you have to increase the pressure, let me call it pressure, voltage, and to have big cables to bring power to a load center. Now, when it gets like water, once the water from Dakaine and the rest get to Nairobi, if it was coming directly to your house, it will blow out your house. So they have to find a way to reduce the pressure of the water to a manageable way it can get to your house. So similarly, electricity gets to a certain point where we have to step down and reduce the voltage in a way that Kenya Power can take to your house. A good example, the voltage in your house, even in this place, is around 220 kV. That's what you're basically talking about is 400 kV or 1,000 voltage. So we're talking about power that is 2,000 more powerful than the one that is in your house. So literally our lines, you don't have to touch them to get electrocuted. You just have to be a certain distance from the line to take you where you are born.
To take you where you are.
To your make at least.
Yeah.
Let me ask a very Mwananchi question. When I look at my power bill, I know Kenya Power is the one that's billing me, so I'm like, hiya, why is it this much? Why is it this much? Why is it that much? How much of that goes to KETRACO? Okay,
good question. So electricity bill, there are a number of components that form your electricity bill. One of them, definitely like any other product, whether it's tomatoes, there's input cost. So the product that is being generated or whatever the farmer is putting on board, so that's one component. Then this product has to be moved from a farm to a warehouse where it's going to be maybe brought down to supermarket. So the same thing, there's also a cost of moving this product from where it's been generated all the way now to where it's going to be, to the warehouse or where it can be brought down to. So there's going to be a cost of transmission, then there's going to be a cost of distribution in the whole thing. So those are basically the input cost. Another cost that we are trying to reduce is the cost of losses. Currently in Kenya, we're talking about basically anything like 22-23% of the losses. Whether you're selling tomatoes, if you're losing 23% in the whole place, you cannot, when bills are given out, you cannot account for that business. Definitely, the people are paying the 77% have to pay for the 100%. So that's the whole thing. So there's a cost of input, but generation, the cost of transmission, the cost of losses, then that is part of your bill. Then we know in Kenya there are taxes, there are issues like whether it's a water resource, other people conserve the forest and the trees and the rest. So those are the costs. So the number of costs that come in there. Transmission cost, apparently, we are basically talking about anything like 0.5%. Wow. Because if you look at even Kenya Power's annual report, the revenue they collected is 231 billion. KETRACO's cost is 5 billion. So we're a small component of the overall cost of electricity.
Is that your only source of income?
Yes, the main source of income for KETRACO is definitely, the big source is the wheeling tariff. The wheeling actually is the O&M tariff. So we get paid to undertake operation maintenance. The capital cost is going to be borne by the government through loans. The other source of revenue that we have is all our transmission lines have what we call an optical fiber. So KETRACO has actually one of the most elaborate fiber network across the whole country, reaching load centers. We've been reaching our neighboring countries. So with the line to Ethiopia, for example, we give Kenyans 2 ways to take the data to the marine cable. One either through Mombasa, the one through Djibouti, through our neighboring countries. Then we've done the line to Tanzania. So at least that part of the of business is also growing up. So we are growing day by day. All Liquid Telecom, Safaricom are on board to undertake all that. So that's our source of revenue. Then definitely want to now move into consultancy to support people in the same area that we work in.
And what about, maybe this could be a good time to talk about public-private partnerships, and I'm also curious whether that offers another revenue stream. But first, just talk about PPPs. I think when Latif was starting this segment, he said, yeah, we've been hearing it so much. So maybe speak to that with regards to the sector.
Okay. Let me start with some numbers, then I give the rationale. So KETRACO, definitely one of the things to increase the network of just about 10,000 kilometers. But when you look at our transmission master plan and what we call the least compartment plan, the needs of the country are to have close to 20,000 kilometers of transmission lines. So we need to add another 10,000 kilometers on board, plus the associated substations. Estimated cost is $5 billion US dollars. That's what you get. So it's basically anything like $250 million or 33 billion shillings per year. That's the need that we have here. Now, since we joined KETRACO, at least since the first day, how has projects been financed? The 6,000 plus we've done is government has always been borrowing, then on granting to KETRACO. So the cost of the transmission line is actually borne by taxes and not borne by the cost of power. So government has been borrowing from World Bank, ADB, and the rest, and all the projects we have finished, all those almost 40 projects have been done purely by government borrowing and getting more projects. But at the same time, we need more transmission lines. The needs of the country are increasing. Kenyans are demanding more stable power, more reliable power, and more resilient. So we need to put up transmission lines. So we from the current strategic plan that we have, it was very clear that before we used to rely on 80% of our projects to be financed purely by government borrowing, and that is not going to be possible. I think all of us know the current financial situation we're in, and we have actually reduced that to 40%, so open up space for private sector to come on board to undertake some of the projects. And that's why we find ourselves today is out of the 90 projects I have in my transmission line, we have some projects we estimate, actually bigger picture, we estimate 20% of our projects can be done as PPP, meet all the obligations that the Act requires here. So now that's how PPP comes on board. How will we partner? KETRACO is still doing quite a number of projects even today. We have tenders that are ongoing, but will not be able to meet the needs of the country if we use this current model going forward.
20% of the 20,000 of the 10,000 extra kilometers is what you're saying. You're targeting that to come from PPP.
Yes.
All right. So that's about what? 2,000 kilometers.
2,000 kilometers?
It's a small percentage.
Yeah, it's a small percentage of all the projects.
And the 80% will continue being we borrow.
That's a target.
We build, we pay.
Yes.
Okay.
That's whatever. But definitely we get to a point in some countries have moved where the utility company also gets into being able, once we have a financial model quite clear in the energy sector where you can finance some of the projects, where KETRACO actually borrows and does some projects in future and PPP. But what we have right now is either exchequer borrowing or PPP, which is a new thing right now.
Okay. When it comes to PPP, what exactly are we saying? Are we saying that Eric and Janet can form a company that is able to mobilize resources and bring in engineer to build a grid and they run that transmission line? Or are we saying that we build and run and hand over the transmission line to KETRACO? Who owns this? Who will own the 20% transmission line?
Okay. What we're looking at in terms of somebody, whether it's Eric or Janet or Miriam here, you invest also pension schemes because they're pushing quite a lot to come and invest the capital cost and other related costs of the project and to be able to finance the project, then take the next maximum of 30 years to recoup the money. So you put on money, then you get paid a certain amount of money every year to recoup the cost that you put in the project. So it's this we're moving into is that the space is actually open to any investor who wants to come on board and give us a deal that actually meets all the requirements of the Act.
Okay.
Yes.
So they will take the next, let's say, 30 years to recoup their investment. Are they recouping the investment from Mariam's bill, or are they recouping the investment from Mariam's bill and Mariam's taxes?
Okay, in this case, once we move them to getting a tariff, actually they get the tariff from the PPPs will get paid from the electricity tariff and not the taxes. You know, it's either projects have to be paid through taxes or have to be paid through the tariff.
Yeah.
So in this case, once the pilot lines are definitely going to be paid through tariff and tariff only. Yes.
And is the tariff going to be higher?
There are two ways.
Right now, KETRACO is getting a tariff.
Yes.
Okay. Is it going to be the same for the PPP?
Okay, it varies based on project and project.
Yeah.
Let me just give something here. Once you get the input cost of the project, then you know the cost of borrowing, the cost of debt, the cost of that. Like any mortgage, you know you're starting 10 million, this is the interest rate, then you know how much money you're going to pay per month. So that's how it's going to be. So the same way in terms of they put that, then the tariffs we calculate how much, and we get an approval from EPRA. EPRA looking at in terms of whether the increase is affordable or not. But looking at two things here. There's the project costs that are coming up. Maybe the tariff goes up by 2-3%. Let's assume that on here. Then what are the projects come on board to do? One of them, which specifically speaking more about, is to allow GDC to bring an extra 300 megawatts of geothermal power.
GDC?
Yes.
Who's GDC?
Geothermal Development Company in Parker area, because that's on the project now. The geothermal power it's coming at 10 shillings. It's displacing power that is being generated at 23 shillings. So now that's also there's the benefit that comes from there. Then there's also the cost of the...
Would that be felt immediately?
Yeah, you know, it's a plus and minus together at the same time, yeah. So part of it grows. You know, it's only the first year that you get a tariff increase, then it starts going down because it's a function of the sales that have been done. So once the sales increase, the tariff increase reduces. That's number one. Secondly, if you bring cheaper power, that increases. But there's also the cost of reliability that comes to the whole thing in resilience. I mean, that if you had outages caused by this line, for example, or a disturbance, now there's an alternative line to supply power in that area. So that reduces. But one of the big things that I wanted to mention, because one of the lines, I know I've not mentioned by name, goes down inside Western Kenya. Now, Western Kenya is currently supplied power using medium voltage lines, 33 kV net. So the technical losses, remember I said losses are going to be, we're coming from 23%. Cabinet made a decision that the energy sector has to reduce by 8%. So 1% for transmission, 2% for distribution, then commercial losses are the rest. So once we have a transmission line inside Western, it reduces the losses that come. So remember, you're paying for the losses. So if I do a transmission line, then it reduces the losses. It also reduces the cost of power.
Okay.
Yes. So it's a win-win situation. So it's not just there's an increase, but there's also a decrease because of other factors. Yes.
So is it safe to say that PPPs can then deliver affordable electricity to ordinary Kenyans in the long run?
That's correct. If the project is correctly chosen, that's why not every project can be done as a PPP. Not every project. It has to be a project that if you look in terms of, because when you're doing a PPP, you're basically looking at a number of things. One of them is value for money. Yeah, well, looking at the benefits that the line is bringing on board, both the qualitative and quantitative benefits, whether they're making sense. So it has to be a project that is bringing benefits, for example, bringing cheaper power, improving reliability, or increasing the quantity of power that can be evacuated. You see, now, once you have more power available, now you can attract people, whether it's data centers, AI, and the rest that can come into the whole market, or even other industries come on board here. So you have to look in terms of what are the benefits the project is bringing on board. And if one of the biggest benefits, if it's bringing cheaper power, that's an immediate benefit because it's just plus or minus to bring on board. Then the project definitely has to meet what you call affordability. So if you're bringing a project that has definitely it's coming up more than the inflation rate, then that project doesn't make sense to be done as a PPP. Then it has to be a project that how risks are managed, because that's another thing that we don't quantify the cost of risk. Because have this project here, typically KETRACO, we have been seeing delays of 36 months in all our projects. So if you can get, and that is a cost. If you read what the Auditor General said, I think at the beginning of the month, that Kenya owe pending bills of 90-something billion. If you notice, KETRACO was actually mentioned at 23 billion. And those, basically all my pending bills are claims by contractors who could not work because we don't have the resources to be able to pay the landowners on time.
Right.
So if I can remove this risk, therefore I don't have any claims and any delays. And Kenyans can enjoy power much earlier.
Much better.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it. A lot of Kenyans know KenGen, and then they know Kenya Power. They don't know KETRACO as much. But then when you think of headlines now, you go to a recent PPP that got people's attention, the Adani deal that was meant to happen with KETRACO. What were the fundamentals of that deal? And did they meet the stipulations that you've just given us for affordability, etc.?
If I specifically speak about that project, which now it's a past tense, but let me speak about the projects first, the importance of the project. One of the projects they were doing is a line from somewhere near Gilgil or Naivasha to Thika to Malais on that side of Nairobi, then Konza. That was to enable the greater Nairobi area to have a 400 kV ring system. The good thing about a ring system is if you have a fault in one area, power can pass through other areas. Then we have a line that passes the current line from Suswa coming to Nairobi North. If you look at the list of all the projects all the transmission lines that have caused national blackouts in the last, maybe since 2015, it's a culprit because it's seriously overloaded. So I needed to bring that project on board. The reliability and stability it was going to bring in Nairobi was definitely a plus, and to allow more people to open powers, to have power available in that part of the country. So
again, let's break it down a little bit.
Okay.
So currently we have a Suswa Nairobi line. Okay. Where is that? From Suswa, is one that goes to Isinya, comes this way. Or is that
okay. Currently, what we have around Nairobi is what we call a 220 kV level. So we have a line. Let me start from Olkaria. All the power from Olkaria, from Ethiopia, from Lake Turkana come to a place called Suswa.
Okay.
So Suswa is our hub. Then from there, you have a ring system. You can go to Nairobi North, which is actually the Dedu. Then you go back to Dandora. Then Dandora, you go back to Embakasi. Embakasi, you go to Athi River, Isinya, and back to Suswa. So we have that ring system that we have. And because of the load that is in north part of Nairobi, the line is seriously constrained.
Right.
What does that mean?
The line basically operates at 2 circuits, 100%, 100%. Unfortunately, if you are to have a fault, like you even lose one insulator, you lose a circuit breaker. Because I think last year we had 2 national blackouts caused by fault. Just one circuit breaker going off, you have a national blackout. Because it's carrying a big circuit
breaker goes off?
Yes.
Why does it cause a blackout?
Because this line is carrying anything like, let's talk about 500 megawatts of power. 500 megawatts is basically a quarter of the power used in the country. You lose a quarter of power of the country, you split the country, the hydros on one side, the geothermal, cascading failure, you lose one after the other. So you need to have more redundancy in the system to allow power to flow in different directions.
So the justification then for this Gilgil Thika to Konza line was to build another line.
A ring system that is at high voltages.
So that ring system, is it going now to take extra power, or is it going to now distribute the same power?
Both would definitely distribute the power. The first thing is to deload the existing lines so that those lines, none of them operate at more than 50%. Good thing about 50% is if you lose 50%, it goes to their side, then you still have 100%. People will not feel any interruption. It will allow us to deload. But secondly, it also allows a strong line to hold the country, the east part of the hydros and the west part of the geothermals. Line that brings resilience so that it can hold the country even despite anything happening. And then again allows geothermal power to flow the way to Mount Kenya region. So that's ongoing. So the project is actually important, and I think later I'll mention. Okay, we can still mention here. After Adani, we are trying to package the project to go for tender. So maybe before the end of the year, we'll be actually going there. So I can mention that projects name by name, and all of them are extremely urgent to be undertaken. So what we're doing in KETRACO, besides the Africa 50 projects that we're doing, the 2 projects, we are packaging the other projects to be brought on board. Let me give a quick example. There's a substation in Sondo called Tuerboro. If you actually travel down to that part of Nyanza, you'll notice that all that area does not have a step down to 33 kV voltage. So you have to go very far to bring power. So you need to put power there to serve parts of Nyamira, to serve parts of Sondo, parts of Homa Bay, to get power. This we are trying to package internally to have some pension schemes to be done usually using local funds. That's what we plan to do. But the key ones we have right now that we're about to roll out are the Africa 50 and power grid projects.
Africa 50 is the Gilgil to Konza one?
No, Africa 50 is doing 2 transmission lines. One of them is from Kisumu, Kibos, Kakamega, Musaga. So that's one of the line cutting right across Western, the former Western province. They're also doing a line from a place called Losuk. Losuk is just west of Maralal. This is along the line that comes from the wind plant all the way to through Paka areas where GDC has almost 20 megawatts of power available steam. Then we cut all the way to Lesos. So those are the 2 transmission lines that are next coming on board.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll talk about them in a bit greater detail shortly after this break. We're having a break. We're taking a break now with Dr. Engineer John Mativo, the Managing Director of the Kenya Electricity Transmission Company, KETRACO. He's here to explain to us our power transmission, our needs, and also how we can get to the 20,000 kilometers of grid that's required to have stable power supply. We only have 9,400, about 10,000 kilometers, you said, by the end of this year. So we need an extra 10,000 very fast. Okay. Explain to us that, and also the justification for PPPs and the costs. That's the bigger issue. Back shortly after this break. Dr. Engineer John Mativo is the Managing Director of KETRACO, and he's here today to explain to us our power transmission, to make us understand power transmission, and also to make us understand the whole conversation around PPPs, which has been there on issue of power transmission. Many questions coming in on social media. One of them?
Very true. Someone was asking, our, let me make sure I just get it right from Michelle, that, yeah, our installed capacity is more than our usage, yes. So how come we're still having blackouts and shortages, etc. In layman's terms? Because yes, we had that. I was speaking with the ISAC chair, CEO as well. Said technically we have installed power more than we use right now.
Okay.
he's laughed like, let me tell you the truth.
What can you explain here?
Okay. Mathematically, when you add the numbers, it might seem like we have more power in quotes than what we consume. So when you add the numbers, comes to 3,300 around that number. But when you look in terms of the sources of power, and every power, there's no generator that operates at 100% power factor. They are different whatever. Let me give a good example. We are currently going through the rainy season. So 2 things happen in Kenya during the rainy season. All the 200 plus solar plants that we have in the country hardly generate more than 23% of their factors. So whether we have 2 solar. The other thing, unfortunately, that happens in Kenya is that when it rains, the wind goes down. So the days we have basically close to 0 wind coming from the various wind plants. Right now, on a good day, when it's sunny, then we have it increases to maybe 8% of what we're generating, but it can actually go to 0. Now back to solar. Solar is something interesting that you can have 210 that is available right now. Cloud cover, it goes down from 210 to maybe even 50 or even 40 in a second, then comes back to 210 the next second. Okay. So that becomes whatever. Then all these are power plants that we have, whether it is geothermal, nothing is operating at 100% efficiency of the machine. So technically, the National Control Center has what they call the spinning reserves. That is a power that you have on the side that in case you lose a power plant, you can call on it quickly to come and generate power. Initially, they operate at 100 and something megawatts that are available for them to play with, usually during peak hours. Remember, peak hours is the time that we don't have sun, we don't have that. So unfortunately, sometimes the machines have to go for maintenance, then you lose that. I'm sure if everybody remembers, 2 weeks ago, I think on Thursday, we had vandalism in the line from Ethiopia, which was bringing 10% of the power we are consuming in the country. We lost the power due to vandalism, and unfortunately, 10% of the country had to be power managed. That lose power because there was no way we could take care of almost that power, almost 150 megawatts. People had to be put off based on power management, rationed in other ways. Yeah. So we're in a place where we definitely need to increase generation, especially base load, people like geothermal, hydro, farm capacity that you can be very certain about, also maybe increasing imports from our neighboring countries that is still lacking. So the truth is that we don't have that amount of a lot of power than we think we have. We actually move in a place where if we lose a machine, either due to fault, these things are made by man, or whatever happens to the line or something happens, we will definitely end up load shedding.
Camila, bank available balance versus that
is true.
They're 2 different things.
Yeah. How are we addressing vandalism though? that's happened for a long time.
And then, as you answer that, I'm sorry, it's one just because I would be very mad at myself if this interview ended. And this is below your pay grade, engineer, but allow me to ask: Mbona stima upotea kukinyesha? Thanks. Thank you. Vandalism.
No, the question you're asking, I think if it comes to power blackouts, why they happen, and my bills, that's what most people are looking for. But yes.
Okay, let me start with vandalism, because part of the vandalism is tied up to why when it rains, you lose power. But let me start with basically vandalism. We basically, I think, have three key types of vandalism. Let me start with the one that in Samburu, the young men there, they need to practice how to shoot or to do something else, take care of their livestock, and unfortunately they choose my KETRACO's glass insulators because maybe it sounds very nice to when they hit them. Ding. And it pops. So we spend a lot of time doing a lot of community awareness to get them on board. Our team will just explain to them that this is something they should not do. So that's one kind of vandalism. Secondly is basically the one somebody steals the tumas, and that happens quite often. We've seen quite a number of towers come down due to vandalism. Actually, there is a place, the line that comes from Olkaria to what they call Naivasha substation along the Maimai Road. There are actually six towers that came down last week, and purely vandalism. Somebody steals and the others just collapse. So there's that one. Then there's the issue of copper. Now that's the biggest nuisance. People come to the substations and steal copper, and most of copper is used to protect. I don't know, Kenya is still a very big exporter of copper, and you don't have a copper mine. So those are issues of that cause power, and everything. When it happens that way, it causes some interruption in power supply. But tying up to the whole thing about electricity disappearing when it rains, that one is basically tied up to vegetation management. You have a tree that grows, it grows very, very, very close to the distribution lines. Then it rains or it wants to rain. Remember, that water allows electricity to form a path all the way to the ground. So you have a lot of faults that occur with electricity flowing down. So that's why Kenya Power has been trying to cut the trees next to the power line. Actually, if you see a power line that is grown all the way to a tree that is grown all the way to the power line, the best thing is to report it for it to be managed before it rains. So that most of it happens because of that. That water is a good conductor of power, and trees give it a way to go down the.
So who's responsible to make sure that trees are not near power lines, or power lines are not near trees? Let's start with the power lines not near trees.
Yeah, I
think it's both levels, because Kenya Power definitely have. I mean, KETRACO we're basically, the country has, as you said, 10,000 kilometers of transmission, but we have 320,000 kilometers of distribution. So definitely, that's why there are more faults at distribution level. So Kenya Power has that and responsibility in terms of managing the vegetation. Then also on our side, we definitely have to manage to ensure there are no trees that are growing close to my line, because my line is told you don't have to touch it to get electrocuted. So that's something that we continue regularly managing the trees and cutting the trees. But again, if the public could support Kenya Power and ourselves, it's going to be a very big plus.
By doing what? Cutting trees, engineer?
No. Informing the companies there's a tree that is very close.
Wait. There are people who come to check the meters all the time. I mean, these guys are inspecting us every time. Kama hujalipa stima wanakata kwa kikingi. Yeah. Right?
Immediately.
So they should be able to come and inspect and see this tree is closed. And we see that often. Actually, in fairness to them, we see that often. They come and they start pruning trees that are near power lines. But are we saying that if another tree grows and they have not seen it, I should know that they have not seen it?
Okay, technically the inspectors. Okay, I know a sister company also has a lot of inspectors that go out. But I was saying that one or two cases that occurs, because sometimes you go home and you find a tree, and me at least I always take a photo of anything that I see, and I see a pole that is leaning and send it to Kenya Power and tell them this, this and this. So I think humanly just to be able to check everything, but definitely that's one of the requirements. But I think the biggest problem they had in Nairobi is people not understanding that. And I think the last time they tried to cut trees in Nairobi, it was a whole big hullabaloo.
Oh, yeah. We are trying to plant trees, and then these guys are coming to cut trees.
Yes.
So how do you address the issue of vandalism, as you've explained to us? So there is the one of community awareness, right? But then these others of thieves who are stealing copper, and thieves who are stealing for scrap metal.
And exporting.
And exporting.
Okay, fortunately, we also have what is called the Energy Police Unit. So we work closely with the police departments. We also work very closely with the Ngao part of it that goes all the way to the chief, so they're aware of it. You've seen quite a number of arrests that have been done to people who are dealing with scrap metal. We try to work with the Scrap Metal Association. I know there's a time when copper was banned export, and it actually, we went for a number of months with no vandalism in copper, but now it was returned, so we can actually see vandalism occurring almost on a continuous basis. So it's just being able to work with yourself, and again working with the media to educate people, because people don't see that what you do has an impact on the whole thing here. I think we have tried to lobby, definitely, legislation so that export of things like copper or something that we're not producing, we are not seen like
we are exporter of this. Engineer, let's inject here a bit, engineer. Do you think we should ban scrap metal exports completely?
Okay.
We saw in a short period when it was banned by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, you say that we saw a reduction in vandalism cases, not just of power but also on road infrastructure. And then it came back up, and we can see a correlation with the increase in vandalism cases. Should we just outlaw scrap metal?
I would want to say yes. That definitely, I'm tempted to say yes. But if it's not saying yes to complete banning, is how do you manage? To me, it's very clear. We should make it mandatory that any sale or transaction of scrap metal has to pay withholding tax. Now, most of these guys do not want to enter the system, because the moment you pay withholding tax and you file a report in terms of how you got the copper or whatever metal, you now enter the system.
There's
so you're already on
trail.
there's a paper trail of everything else. So to me, that's the first thing in terms of getting that. Nobody should be allowed to be having maybe a kilogram or half a kilogram of scrap metal without having a paper trail in terms of how it was done.
Yeah, I want us to I still want us to address issues around last mile connectivity and how we can get there. But Africa 50 and Power Grid, talk to us about that project.
Okay, Africa 50 and Power Grid, we have two transmission lines that I mentioned earlier. One of them is Losuk line to Lesos. This will allow the country two major things. One of them is to allow part of the power that's generated in Marsabit to flow all the way to Western Kenya. And secondly, also allow our sister agency, Geothermal Development Corporation, to be able to harness the geothermal that is in Paka. So we are actually passing right in the middle of geothermal fields that already exist in wells, so they're able to generate the power and feed into the grid, which is a lower price. I know the local Baringo county government have chosen a site for the industrial park very close to the transmission line to be able to supply power. So that allows power to go to their side. Secondly, is a line from Kisumu, from Kibos, Kakamega, Musaga, definitely allows the people in Kakamega or this general western area to have shorter distribution lines to have more reliable power. I told you our lines operate at 99.9% availability, so we're able to bring that kind of quality of power. We're able to bring a power that the line technically should be able to supply 320 megawatts of power right in the Western Kenya from the current 20 megawatts. So that means it gives the counties in that area and the investors that power stability and availability should not be one of the big concerns. So we have Africa 50 coming on board. Africa 50, for those who are not familiar with, is an organization that belongs to African governments that was put aside. So we have African Development Bank that finances public projects. So we have ADB projects that are financed. But Africa also set up Africa 50 to finance private sector. So there's NTV and the rest, you can get finance. So they're planning to do these transmission lines. We're in the point where projects are approximately worth 45 billion Kenya shillings. They've given us actually the cost of debt is 7.25 which is way below what was actually shared as a Eurobond that was recently released by National Treasury.
7.25%.
Yes, that's the cost of debt. The cost of return of equity, 16, we're trying to push them to 15, but still the weighted average is around 7.7, which is much lower than the 9 that was shared there. So money is much cheaper. They take a lot of risk. They ensure the projects get finished on time. So far, our projection is that between 2 and 3% is an increase, but when you start reducing the benefits going down, we are basically seeing the numbers coming down. So we are still packaging the whole process. Then when we make the application to EPRA formally, the numbers will be clear what they're giving us as the tariff.
When do you hope to sign off this deal?
We currently, lessons learned from previously, where we're trying to do a lot of stakeholder engagement, public participation. So we have been done publicly in Nairobi. We have been to a number of counties. We are meeting leaders. So just packaging the whole thing that everybody's aware about what the PPP is all about, what these companies are, they're coming on board, what are the benefits and the cost of the projects. That's what we are trying to spend time on right now.
Yeah.
And if everything goes well, we plan to go to the PPP committee at the end of April so that next month we can more or less have a project agreement. We can get commercial closure leading to financial closure later in the year. Then the project start.
So the bill would go up by about 2.5%.
It depends on the use. Some 2%, some 3%. That's maximum before adding the benefits. Before adding the benefits of the project. Yes.
And how long do we before the bill starts coming back down?
No, some of them will come down immediately. I mean, once the project, remember, they don't get paid until the project is finished.
Okay.
That's a good thing about PPP. So the day they get finished, the technical losses go down immediately on the same day. Yeah, so we start seeing benefits ripping there.
Okay.
GDC, geothermal development companies, also align themselves to start generating geothermal power once the line is ready. So we see ourselves coming there. And remember, in this is the first year of since the factor is annual revenue requirement divided by sales is what I'm calling the tariff. Sales are increasing every day. The consumption is increasing. So even by the time they finish the project in 2-3 years' time, actually the even be much lower and continues being lower and lower and lower.
So Africa 50 owned by African countries and supported by FDB. Okay. Who owns Power Grid? Who's Power Grid?
Okay, let me finish with Africa 50. Kenya, by the way, is among the top 5 shareholders of Africa 50. We sit in the board of Africa 50. So we are, it's ours. It's ours. Okay. Too.
It's Marwa.
Power Grid is a company that is owned by the Indian government. So they're equivalent to the KETRACO in India.
Okay.
So 51% is government and the rest is public. They actually, if you look at the history, 30 years ago, they were like KETRACO, 100% depend on exchequer. Then the government of India decided to open the space for investment, gave Power Grid resources. Power Grid can invest now. Power Grid relies itself. Actually, Power Grid is the 11th most profitable company in India, more than generation and distribution, giving a lot of dividends back to government. So if it's structured quite well, transmission, remember, transmission is a low cost and low risk in terms of when it comes to the electricity tariff, but it's key to everything.
Engineer, how do we bring back public confidence in PPPs, especially in the power sector? You understand why people are, whenever you hear PPP now, it's, panic and hands off.
Kwanza now here you've brought in Indian government.
Yes.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is proper education. It's quite key. I mean, to know the whole process of PPP goes through a number of checks and balances. First, they give a proposal. KETRACO team internally has been satisfied. We have to go all the way to the committee to get satisfied. The proposal is okay. We go to now the project development phase where they do all the detailed reports. KETRACO team approves, goes to the committee to approve. Then we come and negotiate with them. PP committee, in our area, PP committee has to approve. AG has to approve, and EPRA has to approve. So we're completely regulated in every step. Then remember, we are also undertaking the same kind of projects on a day-to-day basis. So I still have World Bank projects on the same. So I have to be able to ensure that the projects make sense, the prices are fair. Actually, one of the things I should have said by now to Power Grid, because of the size of Power Grid in India and the economics of scale, Power Grid actually able to get cheaper EPC cost than KETRACO. Can I show you? So the lines...
What's EPC?
The cost of construction and cost of material. Unlike KETRACO, which will order maybe 5 transformers in a year, Power Grid orders maybe 100. So definitely the price they're given and the price I'm given is very different here. So we're able to utilize that benefit they have to come to the project. So there's benefit from Africa 50 bringing an extremely low debt or cost of debt because we're part of them, and Power Grid using its position to able to attract the technical part of it and end up with cheaper projects. Yes.
I think public engagement and even community outreach would play some kind of role in putting people at ease when it comes to PPPs and all of the projects being launched. Is there community outreach? Is KETRACO key on public engagement and community outreach as well?
Yes, we have in the field. We actually said we're going to spend 2 months, the whole of last month and part of this month, on education. So I was actually down in Vihiga. I was there in Kisumu. Had to explain high voltage in Swahili. Okay, that's a story for another day. So we've done that. We have met actually people at different levels. We were at City Hall, the hall down there, the other week, just being able to explain. And we're going to spend time, even the MPs, the senators, we're going to spend time explaining to them so that people are given a chance to ask questions. And based on these questions, and we had all the pension schemes, banks come to when we did one of the public participation. There's so much eagerness for investment, because actually most of the pension schemes, I would say, think about transmission as a source of investment long term, and not just real estate and other things, or even government bonds. I think it's a safe space. Yeah.
What are the main concerns that you've heard from the public engagement?
Definitely is what Mariam has asked about issue of tariff and the benefits, when the same questions you've basically asked. That's one of the things. The other thing is local content. What is there for us? Yes, it's good. We have these companies that are coming on board, but how will we benefit? And what we've made very clear with the joint venture is whether 40% we must adhere to the staff, both during construction, but again during the 30 years. I mean, local staff, so going to be more and more local staff, suppliers coming on board from local, so that Kenyans are the ones actually basically running the whole thing. That's what we're working on in detail, so that's another concern. What is there for us during this period? Yes.
So if you would like to engage and ask more questions, I'm sure you can reach out to KETRACO. You are very active as an organization and as the MD on X and all the social media platforms. How can people ask questions here?
Okay, we have set up a special email address, which is PIPS at ketraco.co.ke. So that's available. Then we always have a typical info at ketraco.co.ke. That's always available. But for me, I'm also available. I try to put a space. But every professional body, first I appreciate the engineers, the lawyers, the urban planners, whether it's their CPDs, they're trying to get me to speak about, I was speaking to magistrate at that time, so to speak to them what you're doing, to me that's a good forum. So anybody who has a organization out there and they want me to come and speak, or my team members, always available.
Okay.
Indeed. So if you'd like to know more about this, the journey that KETRACO is taking into engaging on PPPs for these two key projects, Kisumu to Musaga and Losuk to Lesos, extending our transmission lines, you can engage them by sending questions or your concerns to pips at ketraco.co.ke, not peeps, P-I-P-S, at ketraco.co.ke. We've been having a conversation with the Managing Director, Dr. Engineer John Mativo, on these and more. Keep it here for more. In the next hour, today being the 2nd of April, we remember what happened 10 years ago. And this is at the Garissa University, where Al-Shabaab terrorists, by this time they were there, they were already killing students and shooting indiscriminately. And it was a hue cry. 149 students died on that day. We'll be remembering that, lest we forget. It's 9 a.m.